Okay, we are live. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 150 that we're going to call the NIST Password Guidelines. So, if you've ever had to change your password every 90 days, if you've ever had to do 6 incorrect password changes to get the right one, if you couldn't use password hints, we got some good news for you. And Tom, our resident, yes.
With this one simple trick, you can have the same password forever. IT guys hate him. All you have to do is do the month and then your last name and then 1, 2, 3 exclamation point. So right now would be May Webster 1, 2, 3 exclamation point. Then in June, change it to June Webster 1, 2, 3 exclamation point. And you can keep your same password forever.
Well,
never forget your password. It's great advice.
Somebody I know was told, because of the password restrictions, make it your first name, the quarter, and your last name.
Yeah, so I worked IT for a long, long time, and I've seen all of these tricks. And by the way, unless you have a pretty good password policy, and unless you're actually looking for this stuff, half of your company's passwords are something like quarter last name or a month last name. I even saw, like 2017-05 last name. And they're all valid passwords, and they're all different enough that most systems are easily tricked by them. But you should absolutely blacklist month, season, quarter, just all of it, because people use it all the time.
But let's back up. I think we jumped too quickly into this, and my punchline got missed in the ether there. So NIST, the National Institute of Science and Technology, came up with their new draft password rules, and a lot of them are things that you're currently doing or you wish you could do. So this is a lot of good news. There is some little annoyances there, but for the most part, this is a nonpartisan government organization who is trying to help people out by saying this is what you should incorporate for strong passwords.
Yeah, so NIST originally said, hey, every so often you should change passwords, you should allow this character set, stuff like that. They're general guidelines. They're not really heavily enforced unless you say, hey, we're enforcing NIST guidelines, or unless you're a government agency of some kind. But it's been a very long time since these were updated. And NIST draft recommendations that just got stamped down and finalized actually do a whole lot of good for passwords, and they really make things more user-friendly and more secure at the same time, which is really rare in the world of security.
So let's go with the overall picture. The overall picture, and we're linking this in the show notes, is favor the user. So again, let's go back to what it was before, where you had to change it every 90 days or every 30 days, and you had all these, had to be minimum of this and maximum of that. They're saying, you know what? No. Let a user choose a really super strong password and explain them. It needs to be really strong and really secure, but we're not going to make you change it. Just make the user understand that why passwords are important, but remind them that this is important and we're not going to bother you with this unless there's a data breach.
Right. And it's not perfect, right? You'll still get people using really terrible passwords forever, but you're never going to get rid of that problem entirely. It's just never going to happen. But what this allows people to do is if you're an IT guy and you say, hey, look, you can trust us this time. We're not making you change your password anymore. Just set one. Just please one long password. You don't have to worry about composition rules, which, by the way, is in this recommendations now. This uppercase, lowercase, number, Egyptian hieroglyph, and an emoji in your password, and it's got to be 900 characters long. They don't care about that. The only thing NIST says now is, hey, at least 8 characters. And by the way, your maximum limit, if you have a maximum limit, should be at the very least 64 characters. Let people make these giant, crazy passphrases, because it doesn't matter what kind of symbols you have as long as it's of sufficient length. The length of the password is the most important thing when it comes to brute forcing or dictionary or passphrase dictionary attacks.
I want to look at that a little more, but I know that you have your own personal password limit of 256.
Yeah, I usually recommend 256 mostly because if you're using like something like bcrypt with a high cost factor where it'll take the server 0.25 to 1 seconds to get in, and that's even a little excessive for a big scalable website. But if your system is working really hard to crunch this down, you don't want someone throwing literally 10 megabytes of text into your password field and have your server have to crunch that giant hash. It just doesn't, it's not economical. So what you could end up with if you allow unlimited length password fields is someone literally uploads a gigabyte of text through your post form and they say, hey, here's my password, and it totally shuts down your server. It basically denial of service attacks your entire website. So I think 256 is a pretty reasonable limit. If you're running a really secure server, you can go more than that. Just have a limit.
But just remember, if you don't know how password hashing and salting works, is that the size doesn't really matter. It takes all that and crunches it into 256 characters of garbage, whether it's one character or, as you go, 10 gigabytes of data. It doesn't matter. It goes there. So when you see an upper limit that's arbitrary, like 16 or 24 or 32, something, I mean, they're not doing something right. It's their server is not optimized, whatever it is. There should be no limit, but make yourself a limit that you really shouldn't have more than some really crazy high number, but don't allow a gig of data.
Yeah, personally, my password generator, my default password is 32 characters, symbols, numbers, upper and lowercase, just blast out a big random string because a lot of sites will accept that today. I don't have to really think about it. You can go higher than that, you can go lower than that. And this suggests at least 8. I'm going to say keep it at 16 or above. And passphrases will really help you out here if you are still remembering your passwords, which, by the way, you should get on a password manager. Just know one password and have that be it. But yeah, composition rules, they have to go out the window. None of these, weird, you must have an emoji thing.
But you can have an emoji now.
You can if you want to, and that's the other part of NIST guidelines, which is really, really impressive and really brings it into the modern era. If you've ever signed up for a bank website, you know that you're not allowed to use / $, like this giant list of symbols. And they say you have to have a symbol, but it can't be any of these symbols, and they've covered your entire keyboard. You get to use tilde, and that's it.
All the escape characters that will SQL inject into the server.
Exactly. So they ban that because their security on the back end is just terrible. So they try to prevent you from SQL injecting their system by banning certain characters. It's a bad security model. But NIST recommends, hey, anything in the UTF-8 spectrum, which is literally any printable character we have in computing today, including emoji. So you can have emoji as a password. If you want, like 32 poop emojis in a row being your password, the NIST recommendations say you can and you should be able to do that.
That would be a really good password, by the way.
It would. Because I have never seen 32 poop characters in a word list.
No, but just that phrase, 32 poop emoji characters. That's that's
lengthy. That's great.
And then if you want to put, and that would be another good idea to say, my password is smiley face emoji, frowny face emoji, because if the person spells it out or does the character, it would be two different things, but you can get away with it. So you can
I have never seen emoji included in a password brute force word list. I'm all about emoji crypt now. Just make all passwords emoji. That's my recommendation.
Look, I got up at not an official taped board meeting, but at a board type committee meeting, and I advocated for emoji as a second language.
I'm all for this.
And I mean, I'm not fluent in emoji. I'm not 15 years old, but emoji as a second language, I mean, it's universal. It's hieroglyphics. So now we get into the things that may hurt you. Check new passwords against a dictionary of known bad choices. So now they're going to they're going to get the hash of the password and they're going to check it against all the top 100 passwords. So you cannot use password or 1 2 3 4 5 6 or monkey or apple or any of those.
Yeah, this is one thing that will annoy your users and might annoy you, but hopefully you're not running into this. Checking against bad passwords is something that the websites that are fairly well known, have a lot of users, have been doing this forever. Google has been checking for these. Facebook and Twitter. Twitter famously has a really long, really easy to hit list of bad passwords that you're not allowed to use. Some websites go so far as to do JavaScript validation on your password. They say, hey, look, which by the way you can bypass, but they say, hey, look, if the word password is in your password before you submit the form, we're just going to gray out the button. You're not allowed to use the word password in anything. Some sites won't let you use your username. These are all good things. Now you can get crazy with it, but I think having this blog post in particular suggests 100,000 entries. I think that's a good list to have. You can even go as low as 10,000. Just get rid of the top of the list. Take the password word list and just say, okay, these things that people are known to be checking for, that are known to be used in a brute force attack, let's just get rid of that risk right there. Let's just make sure that's off the list.
Well, let me ask you this. How do they test that your password is not password? Are they hashing both of them and then testing the equality?
So let's take bcrypt, right? You put in your password, it generates a random salt, appends that or throws it in, makes the hash, and now you've got a salt and a hash. Now what they're going to do is they're going to take essentially those 10,000, 100,000 words and run them through bcrypt with that same salt. If the password matches, they should get the same hash out of that. That means that when you set a password, it's going to be running through your word list unless you're using a static salt, which is bad karma. You shouldn't do it. But if one of those hashes match, they know, okay, you've used one of the 100,000 naughty words. You're not allowed to use that password. So yes, they don't have to compare plain text against plain text. They're just comparing hashes.
But then how, let's say you haystack it a little bit and you do period, password, then it shouldn't flag that. That would be a different hash, but sometimes they do.
Exactly.
Sometimes they do. Sometimes I get weird ones, like my password and my username are too similar, so therefore I have to change it.
It could be easier, right? You could submit the form, and server side, it doesn't do any hashing. Before it does any hashing, it just takes your string, and it does like a search for that word in particular in this word of 100,000 banned words. So it doesn't even have to compare hashes. That would actually be an expensive computation to do. They could just compare it pre-hash and either allow or deny your password. And there's ways to fake that out. You can throw like a dot in the middle of it. People, if you really, really, really want to use password as your password, you can find a way around these systems. This is really to cut, the vast majority of your risk out. If I was really trying to make myself insecure, make a login insecure, I could do it. The system is not going to guard against my malicious actions to hurt myself as a user. It's really just trying to get rid of the people who don't know enough or don't care enough to choose a secure password.
Look, so far this all sounds great. The only thing that I can see people complaining about is this password list of 100,000, whatever it is. But you know what? They'll figure it out. Which gets us to some other stuff, and they call these the don'ts. But no composition rules. So don't make them have the uppercase, the lowercase, the special symbol. Just let them do whatever they want. And I think what's going on is that they're saying, look, if we're asking you to create something longer, but we're going to give you no rules. And hopefully you're going to choose a sentence that has punctuation, or it's going to have something a little different. And you nudge people towards that, saying, look, we're not going to make you do a special symbol, but please just make it longer. People would probably throw in a couple periods or two.
Yeah, it's really about the length, right? The complexity, it really makes stuff harder for humans to remember. It makes it slower to type. It makes it more annoying and more arduous. Length is king in passwords.
I mean, what most people do, if you say, okay, we need a capital letter, we need for it, we need a certain amount of numbers, and we need this. People are going to capitalize the first letter of the password. They're going to add the numbers at the end, most likely their birth year, and then they're going to add an exclamation point to the end of that to get the special symbol, just to get this out of the way. And if you know that, then when you try to brute force the password, you're more likely to get it, because everyone knows this game. We're going to capitalize the first letter. We're going to exclamation point the end, and we're going to put our birth year in the middle somewhere.
And if you think that, well, that doesn't exist on any default word list, when someone is generating a word list, they usually start with, a base, stemmed version of the word list, and they throw something like John the Ripper to go, or other scripted tools to go through the stemmed or base words in the word list and apply certain characteristics to it. So if your word list has apple, it'll be capital A apple, 1 exclamation point, which could fall under your passwords. Usually for a good password list, you'd start with some base stuff and apply some algorithms to it, right? Through a couple functions to make it look more passwordy. And you would throw in stuff, especially if you're attacking a single target. You'd say, okay, well, here's what I know. Here's their dog's name. Here's their maiden name. Here's their birth year. Here's where they went to college. Here's their favorite color, and generate passwords off of that data. And that stuff really works pretty well.
So, I mean, it's again, we're just going to end up saying complexity is more important than anything else, and don't force your users to change different things in order to make it shorter but more complex. And they use the example of changing all the letters, like the A to a 4 and E to a 5 and all these other things.
That is literally a default filter in most password generators.
To fill those out. The next thing, no password hints, which I think is awesome. Do not allow don't make the user put a password hint. It doesn't help.
So I actually got bit by this once. There was a site that used password hints. Otherwise, you had to go through a really arduous process to unlock your account. I forget what it was. But I put nope.jpg as my password hint. And I said, did I have a hint? And I clicked it and it said nope.jpg. I was like, well, shoot. Okay. So I had to go through the arduous process of locking my account. But I totally agree with that. Password hints are only bad karma. They're only used for further social engineering, for whittling down the types of passwords you're going to try. Like if someone's password hint is like, the best dog in the world, you go to Facebook or Twitter and you find out their dog's name. You're like, oh, cool, it's Fluffy123 or Fluffy1988. Got it. We're in. And it's, especially freeform stuff, it's not good. People are going to
put their password in there. They're going to make it so simple, like rhymes with assword, which apparently is a very famous hint there. But people are not. They're going to say Fluffy for their dog or whatever it is, and it doesn't. It's either too easy or it's too hard, one or the other, and it really doesn't add anything. You know what? Password resets are not that hard to do.
I love the email-based password reset with the unique key that expires in an hour. I love that system. It's great. It works. I also love the recovery key system where they say, hey, here's your list of codes. And you mostly see it in two-factor stuff. But here's your list of emergency break the glass codes. If you use one, we can let you reset your password. That's great stuff. I can throw it in a password manager. I'm done. Which actually brings us to something related, which is knowledge-based authentication, or more simply put, the stupid security questions you get, like what's your mother's maiden name, and who was what was your best friend's name in high school, and all this stupid stuff that people put real answers in. There's real data there, which it's dangerous to have that data just floating around. Mother's maiden name is used in a lot of places for authentication. It shouldn't be. And second, it's really easy to find that information, like trivially easy to find that information.
I've been telling my seniors this. Your senior year is just all your password questions rolled up into 1 year. And
basically, yeah.
Your senior year, a yearbook will tell you a lot of information about a person. And as you're going through it, you can as you're going through your senior year in high school, and I see this every year, basically all those answers are there. Your school mascot, your first car, your first hopefully, I mean, I don't want to say hopefully your first girlfriend, but your first girlfriend's name, your birthday, your favorite color, your favorite food, what happened in that year, they're all there. And I just want to call out United Airlines. I don't know. Tom, do you fly United Airlines?
Yes, I fly Fight Club Airlines all the time.
So if you logged into United recently, they made you add a whole bunch of security questions. The problem is they gave you your answers. So you had to choose the answers from a drop-down list.
Oh.
And I'm not going to say it's bad, but it's like, what's your favorite band? And they give you like 30 bands to choose from. So if you're some sort of underground EDM fanatic, the Rolling Stones don't do it for you. Or you can pick the Rolling Stones because that's the first name that you see there. Now, to their credit, they do randomize it. So next time, because I did try to guess all my sisters' security questions, and I'm not going to say that I didn't get all of them, but I got a lot of them.
United Airlines should specifically have questions related to their airline, like when were you first kicked off your flight? What was the name of the flight attendant that knocked your lights out? What are rules 1 and 2 that you're not supposed to talk about? Right? You know, it's stuff like that relates directly to the airline. That would be great.
I mean, it's like 3 security questions, and you got to do them I do it. I delete cookies all the time. Every time you log on, and I just wish that they would find another way. Because here's the thing. People are not, my sister goes, I don't remember what I put. I mean, I had a favorite band 3 years ago, and I have a new favorite band now. I don't know what to do.
Yeah. I actually have seen customer service use this as authentication, which I really hate the idea of. It's really easy because customer service, it's their job to be helpful. It's their job to make you happy. And when you don't remember your security question, they can kind of help you along if you don't remember it. There was one customer service member from a company that shall go unnamed to protect the guilty. They said, okay, well, what's the answer to your security question? And I said, really? You want me to read that? And the guy said, no, I'm not going to ask you that. Okay, here, how can I help you? I was like, oh my God, really? And I called a different company and had to answer some security questions. And I was talking to the woman on the phone, and she asked me the security question. And I said, oh, it's a random string that's 32 characters long. And she said, oh, is it? You're going to have to tell me exactly what it is. I was like, yes, thank you. Thank you very much. You're doing your job. You're keeping my account safe. And I read every single 32 characters of that security answer. And I did get into my account, but it was very annoying. So you'll get good people and bad people. Yes. Yeah. Well, my answer is really poop emoji, laughing with tears coming out, red square, and fireworks.
We have yellow face, smiley face, black face, tiered face. I mean, anyway, so yeah, let's get rid of the security questions and everything. There has to be another way. If you forget access and you need access to the account, there should be something else. And asking people to get very basic knowledge of themselves is not the right way. So, and then the last one is, and we talked about this, no more expiration without reason. So
yeah, that's great. That's one. It's the smallest thing that IT you can hand your users and say, look, if you make a decent password, for the love of God, please, we promise, unless you get hacked, unless the password gets loose, we're not going to change it. We promise. Your users will love you, and you will love the fact that you don't have to brute force your AD to figure out who's using a crappy password.
So we have, and nowhere does it say on here you can't use your last X passwords. That's another thing that royally bothers me. You can't use your last 5 passwords. So what people do is they'll put their password 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, then 5, and then go back to 1 to keep the same password indefinitely, which is also defeats the whole purpose. But you gave them an out, and that's what they did.
And the last thing, which isn't too big of a deal because we have talked about it here on the show before, SMS should no longer be used in two-factor authentication. On one hand, I agree with it. It's too easy to bypass. We've actually seen real-life attacks using, the insecure routing network to get these codes and to, basically fake your way through two-factor authentication. But if your options are no second factor at all or SMS, clearly the winner in that fight should be, yeah, okay, use SMS. I would much rather get a text message for a second factor authentication than not have it at all. But it's easy enough to implement Google Authenticator, Authy. This stuff is really easy to do now. So, if you're implementing it at the start, if you have the option, don't use SMS. If you have no other way, sure, it's a decent fallback, but definitely not the most secure option.
And then they talk about how to store the passwords, which is salted, hash, and stretched, and have, I'm going to say this wrong, PBKDF2, password-based key derivation function 2, which basically means it's gonna do some sort of hashing function a lot of times to basically take longer to authenticate you.
I would. Password-based key derivation function 2 isn't bad. You do have to get your iterations correct. If you set those too low, it's basically the same as using a really crappy hashing function. But really just use bcrypt. Bcrypt solves this for you. Choose a good default work value. You don't have to worry about this. You don't have to implement anything crazy and make your own keys out of a string. Just bcrypt. Bcrypt and done. It's got salting built in. It's strong memory hardened hashing. It's good stuff, and it's available everywhere. There are libraries all over the place. Now, if you're a user, you're saying, okay, but how do I know if they're storing my password securely? Well, if you ask for a password reset and they send you a text message with your password, if they can reproduce your plain text, they are storing it insecurely. If they've got weird limits, like you can only have 10 characters and it can't be these, they're storing it insecurely. There are little telltale signs all over the place. But if they say, hey, use whatever, make it, something more than 8 characters and less than 1,000, okay, you can be reasonably assured that they're doing some things correct.
And I mean, yeah. They're saying that the reason they're not using bcrypt and they're using PBKDF, whatever it is, derivation function, is because older standards rely on it, and bcrypt is not fully accepted by other nation states and everything else. So, but look, this is their first time they've done it. They're telling you this, and hopefully your IT people are going to start implementing this into their own corporate structure, and hopefully all these things get at least addressed in the next year or two. I don't know how long it really takes them to do.
It really depends on the IT organization. It depends on how up they are on recent standards. I think this will take about 5 years to sink down through the common vernacular, and probably 10 years before it's actually commonplace. Unfortunately, these types of things take a while to trickle down, and more importantly, it takes a whole lot of time to change groupthink. Because right now, it's changing passwords every 60 days. People just assume that we do that because it's so much more secure, and it's going to take a whole lot to get them to change that, even though the InfoSec community has been saying forever that it just leads to bad user behavior. We've been saying this for years and years now, but it's finally starting to hit mainstream, and we might see some results in the next 5 to 10 years.
Look, I don't want to go get into politics or anything like this, but what we're seeing now with these Russian investigations is a lot of people actually starting to care about what's actually going on behind the scenes with security and this and that. When you hear about the White House leaking NATO information and code word, whatever, to other countries, people are starting to care about this. And you should care about this. This is absolutely something you should care about. And so take that and say, even if I don't know what's going on, at least we should listen and see what's going on. So when you hear WannaCrypt getting out there, they're talking about that. And and other classified information. These are things that are important and people are, and you should listen to. So just keep on listening.
And we will keep you informed.
And I just dropped my phone, but that's okay. Anyway, we're at the exact 30-minute mark, which is a big deal. Anyway, we have our WhatsApp group. We encourage everyone to join it. Tweet at us, because if we post a link, we will get spammed. And we have a new logo.
Yes, so, a fancy logo.
Yeah, we got a new logo. So if you see it around, don't go a little crazy. That's what it is. We're going to try and populate it on the different sites. But we have a logo, so we welcome
for those of you watching the video version of this podcast, I promise the blinding light will be taken care of. I'm getting a screen. I've moved my desk. I'm in my new apartment, and there's a window right there, and it's killing me. I'm dying right now. I'm a nerd. I'm allergic to the sun.
So anyway, we will see everyone next week, and good night, everyone.
See everyone.
All right. Oh, stop this.